The courtroom was suffocating, not because of the air, it was cool, almost sterile, but because of the tension that squeezed the lungs of everyone present. Every cough, every creak of a wooden bench echoed like thunder under the heavy silence. John Bennett sat perfectly still, dressed in a gray suit that looked crisp despite the hours he'd been sitting. His hands, though folded neatly on the table, trembled just slightly. He wasn't afraid for himself. He was afraid for his daughter. Across from him, Sarah sat like a storm trapped in a woman's body. Her once elegant blonde curls were now disheveled, her eyes bloodshot from sleepless nights or perhaps too many pills. She clutched a folder full of printed accusations like it was a weapon, and to her, it was. "Your Honor," she began, her voice cracking but still loud enough to fill the chamber. "This man is not who he pretends to be. He manipulates, he gaslights, he isolates. He made me feel like I was insane, and now he wants to do the same to our daughter." Whispers rippled through the courtroom like wind through dry leaves. A reporter scribbled furiously in a notebook. The judge, a tall man with weary eyes and a sharp gavel, raised a hand. "Miss Bennett," he said evenly, "you'll have your chance to speak, but if you make baseless claims, I will not hesitate to hold you in contempt." John didn't react. He didn't need to. His attorney leaned in slightly and whispered, "Stay calm. The truth is on our side." But truth hadn't helped so far. For weeks Sarah had painted herself as the victim, a mother trapped with a cold, tyrannical husband. She cried in court. She told stories that were half true, twisted just enough to plant doubt. And worst of all, people believed her. But John had something she didn't know about, something that could shatter her version of the story like glass on concrete. And it wasn't him who would bring it forward. It was their daughter. 8-year-old Emma sat quietly in the back row, a small pink backpack at her feet. Inside it, nestled between a storybook and a juice box, was a tablet, and on that tablet, a video. She looked at her father. He gave her a small nod. It was almost time. The court took a recess. 15 minutes. Just enough time for the facade to shift. Sarah stormed out of the courtroom first, high heels clicking sharply against the tile like gunshots. Her lawyer followed closely behind, whispering something urgent, but she waved him off with a trembling hand. John stayed behind, watching her through the glass doors. He knew that look, the same expression she wore the night she threw a glass against the wall, inches from Emma's head, rage disguised as victimhood, pain twisted into performance. He sat down again, rubbing his palms together. The recess should have been a relief, but instead, it gave him time to think, too much time. His mind swirled with fragments of memory, good and bad. Emma's giggle as he carried her on his shoulders through the park. Sarah, curled on the floor, screaming that she couldn't take it anymore. Police lights flickering on the porch the night he called for help. He didn't want revenge. He wanted peace. But peace, it seemed, had a price. And right now, it was his daughter's silence. In the hallway, Sarah leaned over the water fountain, splashing cold water on her face. She stared at her reflection in the chrome. "You can do this," she whispered. "They'll believe you. You're the mother." They always believe the mother. Her mascara had begun to run, but she didn't care. In fact, she welcomed it. Tears made her look sympathetic, frail, oppressed. It wasn't about Emma anymore. It was about winning, about not being the one discarded, about punishing the man who stopped playing her game. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. She hesitated, then opened it. "She's going to show them the video. You need to stop it." Her breath caught. She spun around, scanning the hallway, but no one was there. Sarah's hands began to shake. How did they know? Who sent that? Was Emma really going to do it? For the first time in months, a seed of panic broke through her armor. Back in the courtroom, Emma sat with her backpack still between her feet. Her little fingers clutched the straps as if bracing for impact. She had rehearsed this moment in her head 100 times. She knew exactly where the video was. She knew when to press play. She even remembered Daddy's words. "Don't be scared to tell the truth, even when it shakes." The door creaked open. Sarah re-entered, face calmer, tears wiped. The mask was back in place. But Emma had already seen what was behind it. Let's take a short pause. If you're watching this, let us know in the comments where you're tuning in from. Have you ever experienced something similar in your own life, or know someone who has? We'd love to hear your story. And if you're not subscribed yet, now is a good time to do it, so you don't miss what comes next. Now, we continue. When the court was called back into session, the air had changed, not in temperature, but in pressure, like a storm looming just beyond the courthouse walls, its weight pressing against the windows, threatening to break them with truth. Sarah walked in with her chin high, her steps rehearsed and sharp. She had put herself back together during the recess, powder over the red marks. A calm smile painted over panic. Her lawyer followed, a bundle of notes in hand, glancing nervously at Emma in the back row. John entered more slowly, eyes only on his daughter. He mouthed a single word to her, "Ready?" Emma nodded. The judge took his seat and tapped the gavel once. "We will resume," he announced, glancing at both parties. "Miss Bennett, you may finish your testimony, but remember, what you say here must be truthful and verifiable." Sarah stood. Her eyes watered instantly, as if on cue. Her voice trembled with carefully crafted fragility. "I did everything I could. I stayed through the yelling, the cold silences, the way he looked at me like I was dirt under his shoes. I stayed because I didn't want Emma to grow up in a broken home." She paused, wiping away a tear. "But now I realize I only made it worse, because now she thinks that kind of coldness is love." John didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. But inside, the word stabbed deep. Lies always hurt more when they're laced with fragments of truth. The judge looked to his side. "Mr. Bennett, would you like to respond?" John rose slowly. He didn't cry. He didn't shout. He only reached into his briefcase, took out a USB, and handed it to his lawyer, who then passed it to the court technician. "This isn't my voice," John said quietly. "It's hers." The judge gave a nod. The lights dimmed slightly as the projector flickered to life. A video appeared on the screen. It began in the kitchen. The camera angle was low, likely from a countertop device or nanny cam. Sarah's voice echoed first. "Don't look at me like that, you little brat." Then came a harsh crash, a bowl or a plate thrown, shattering against the tile. "Do you want to end up like your useless father? Keep crying, and I swear." Emma's voice, barely a whisper, "I just wanted my doll." The courtroom was frozen. Even the judge leaned forward in his seat. The next clip showed Sarah on the phone, pacing. Her tone was venomous. "No, I don't care what the therapist says. She's manipulating me, just like he did. She's learning from him." Another clip. Sarah dragging Emma by the arm toward the stairs. "You will not embarrass me again at school. Do you hear me?" Then silence. A final clip showed Emma alone, crying softly into her hands, whispering, "Why is mommy so mean when no one's around?" When the video ended, no one moved. For a long, choking second, the courtroom was wrapped in stunned silence. Sarah sat frozen, her mouth slightly open, eyes locked on the blank screen. Her lawyer's face had gone pale. The judge cleared his throat and leaned forward. "Miss Bennett, would you care to respond?" But she couldn't. Her lips parted, then closed. She reached for water, her hands visibly trembling. The mask was cracking. In the back row, Emma hugged her pink backpack tightly. She hadn't moved during the whole video, but her eyes, those wide, brave eyes, never looked away from the screen. John turned to look at her, a tear finally breaking loose. But it wasn't from sadness. It was from relief. The truth was finally in the room. The hallway outside the courtroom was no longer silent. Reporters swarmed like flies to a wound. Microphones were shoved forward. Camera flashes burst like miniature lightning storms. The security guards tried to push them back, but the questions still pierced through the chaos. "Mr. Bennett, did you know the abuse was happening this whole time? Will full custody be granted now? Miss Bennett, do you deny the authenticity of the footage? Emma, can you tell us how you feel?" John shielded his daughter with his arm and kept moving. His lawyer walked ahead, clearing the path. Behind them, Sarah stood alone. Her high heels no longer clicked. She'd taken them off. Her hair, once perfectly styled, now clung in strands to her forehead. No one was around her. Even her attorney lagged behind, fumbling with his phone. She turned to the crowd once, tried to speak, but the noise swallowed her. No one listened. Inside the car, John finally breathed. Emma sat beside him, legs tucked under her, backpack clutched to her chest. "Are we going home now?" she asked. John hesitated. "We're going somewhere safe, just for a little while, until the court finishes everything." Emma looked out the window. "I don't want to see her again." "You don't have to," John said, his voice gentle. "You were brave today, braver than most adults." There was a long pause. Then Emma whispered, "Will they believe me now?" John looked at her and nodded. "They already do." Back in the judge's chambers, there was turmoil. Sarah had demanded a private meeting, outraged, trembling, calling the video an invasion of privacy and manipulated. But the judge was calm, measured. "I've watched the footage," he said firmly. "We will of course confirm its origin and integrity, but what I saw I cannot unsee. Sarah's voice broke. He set me up. He coached her to lie. No, Miss Bennett, the judge cut her off. This court is sworn to protect the child, not your reputation. She slumped in the leather chair, deflated. You may want to consider a psychological evaluation before we proceed further, he added. Her mouth dropped open. You're saying I'm unstable? I'm saying we need to be certain. That evening, the video had already gone viral. Someone had leaked it. It was all over social media, accompanied by captions like "The truth about Sarah Bennett and daughter's hidden camera exposes mother's abuse." Comments flooded in. Some called for Sarah to be arrested. Others offered support to John and Emma. A few said what no one had dared to say aloud. How many other mothers are doing this when no one's watching? In the darkness of her apartment, Sarah sat on the floor, TV glowing in the corner, playing the clip on repeat. She was watching herself scream at her daughter, over and over. The wine glass in her hand shook. She hurled it at the screen, and it shattered with a shriek of glass. Then she cried. Not for Emma, not for regret, but for herself. Because the mask was gone, and she didn't know who was underneath. The storm that had begun inside the courtroom was now sweeping through the city like wildfire. John's phone wouldn't stop ringing. News outlets wanted exclusive interviews. Advocacy groups were calling to offer legal assistance and trauma recovery services for Emma. Strangers sent messages of support, sharing stories that were all too familiar. My mother was like that too. I wish I had recorded it when I was a child. Thank you for standing up for your daughter. John ignored most of them. All his focus was on Emma. They were staying in a safe house provided by the court, a modest home on the edge of town with tall hedges and a secure gate. It wasn't much, but it was peaceful. Still, Emma had stopped sleeping through the night. She would wake in a cold sweat, eyes wide, gasping, not from nightmares, but from memories. The smell of her mother's perfume, the cold sting of her words, the sound of shattered dishes. Trauma doesn't wait until you sleep. It walks beside you even in daylight. One evening, as John made cocoa in the kitchen, Emma appeared in the doorway. Daddy? He turned. Hey, sweetheart, couldn't sleep? She shook her head. She clutched a worn, stuffed rabbit, the only toy she had insisted on bringing. Can I ask you something? Anything. Did you know? Her voice trembled. Did you know what she was doing to me? John felt his chest cave in. He put the cocoa down and walked over to her, kneeling to her level. I suspected, but she wouldn't let me near you. I thought maybe I was imagining things. I never should have let her have custody. Emma's eyes brimmed with tears. You believed me though, right? Always, he whispered, even when no one else did. I just didn't have proof. I didn't want to hurt her, she whispered, but I didn't know how else to stop it. John embraced her, holding her like a lifeline. You didn't hurt her, baby. You saved yourself. Across town, Sarah was unraveling. The apartment was a mess. Dishes piled up, clothes scattered on the floor, unopened mail spilling off the table. Her phone had stopped ringing. No one wanted to talk to her now. She'd been suspended from her job as a school counselor. A petition to have her license revoked had reached 80,000 signatures in 2 days. Her name was now a byword for cruelty. Even her family had gone silent. She sat in front of a mirror, staring at her reflection. The woman who looked back was not the one who had once smiled in PTA meetings or posted filtered selfies with hashtags like #BlessedMom. This woman looked hollow. But what disturbed her most wasn't the guilt. It was the fact that she didn't feel any. Only fear. Fear of losing control. Fear of being seen for who she really was. Fear that Emma might never come back. She picked up her phone and opened her texts. Her thumb hovered over John's name. Then she began to type. Please, let me talk to her. Just once. I need her to know I love her. She stared at the screen, trembling. Then she erased the message. Because some part of her already knew. Emma didn't need that love anymore. Not if it meant returning to pain. We're taking a short pause here. If you've been following along and enjoying these intense chapters, don't forget to subscribe to keep up with the story as it unfolds. Your support means a lot. Now, let's continue. The courthouse was quiet now, its once bustling halls eerily still. It had been weeks since the trial had ended, yet the echoes of that day still lingered in the air, like the residue of a storm that had left no trace except for the aftermath. The media circus had long since dispersed, but the emotional scars it left behind were as raw as ever. John sat in his car, staring out at the courthouse steps where reporters had once swarmed. Emma was asleep in the back seat, her little chest rising and falling with the peaceful rhythm of a child who, for the first time in years, was free from fear. The case had been settled. Sarah's parental rights had been revoked, and she was ordered to undergo intensive therapy and psychiatric evaluation. The court had made it clear the damage she had inflicted on Emma was irreparable, and no amount of words could undo what had been done. John wasn't sure how to feel. Relief, yes, but also sadness. He had won, but in a way, he had lost too. He had lost the woman he once thought he knew, the woman who had promised him a future and broken that promise in the most brutal of ways. He had lost the chance to give Emma the childhood she deserved, the one that was stolen from her by a mother who never truly loved her. As he reached for the door handle, a thought stopped him in his tracks. He had known all along that this would be the end of something, but he hadn't realized until now that it was also the beginning of something else, something new, something that would take time, patience, and understanding, but something worth fighting for. John glanced in the rearview mirror at Emma. Her innocent face was now untouched by the pain she had carried for so long. The scars were still there, buried deep, but she would heal. She would be okay. He would make sure of it. Sarah's apartment was dark. The blinds were drawn, blocking out the world she had once been so confident she could control. It had been a month since the trial, but Sarah still hadn't left the small space she had retreated to. No phone calls, no messages, no one to blame but herself. In the silence, the weight of her actions pressed down on her like a suffocating blanket. There were no more excuses left, no more lies. She had tried to tell herself she wasn't the monster the world believed her to be, but she was, and in the quiet of her loneliness, she finally accepted it. Her phone buzzed, breaking the silence. It was a message from her mother, one she had ignored for weeks. "I don't know what to say, but I love you. I hope you find peace." Sarah stared at the screen, her hand trembling, her heart twisted. She thought of Emma, of the little girl who had once clung to her in fear and love, of the girl she had hurt. Despite every promise to protect her, Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but they weren't tears of regret. They were tears of hopelessness. There was no way to fix what had been broken. The woman who had held so much power, who had controlled the narrative for so long, was now a shadow of herself, alone, regretful, but still alive, with the faintest glimmer of hope that perhaps one day she could find redemption. But for now, all she had were the memories,